Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to Apple Tech Talks and welcome to sort of like my part 2 of my original top 10 reasons why Apple is the best video. Now Apple, don't get me wrong, is an amazing company and they do a lot of things right, but no company is perfect. Nothing in the world is perfect. So today I'm going to be talking about 10 reasons why Apple is the worst or why they suck. So the first reason is that there is essentially no wireless or fast charging. Pretty much every other manufacturer supports this. Android has been getting better battery reviews simply because they have wireless and fast charging implemented and supported in their phones. iOS, they just have that single wire typical charging going on, and that situation isn't going to work out for Apple much longer. This results in worse battery life and just in general, inferior technology. The second reason why Apple sucks is because of the lack of customization in iOS. iOS really lacks the ability to customize and personalize your software on your phone. For example, in Android, you have the simple ability to just move apps and put them wherever you want. On iOS, they don't give you a choice. You have to put it all in a really boring grid view. Also, you cannot install themes on iOS, but in Android you can, and in Android you can select the right theme that fits your personality. In general, it's just not very fun, and I get it, Apple's trying to be simplistic, but offering a little customization feature might not hurt. The third reason why Apple sucks is because their devices have been getting more slow and more buggy. Now, obviously there are always going to be times when there are going to be bugs in a phone or in a laptop or in a tablet or any device of any kind. Google has the same issue, Samsung has the same issue, every company has the same issue with their devices. However, I'm talking about the severe, or not severe, but just sort of significant decrease in the amount of work Apple puts into eliminating or squashing out those bugs. Steve Jobs was obviously really harsh on Apple's employees, and I think because he's gone, I feel kind of bad saying this and I feel kind of silly saying this, but I think it's actually having Apple let its guard down a little bit on these kind of bugs and sort of speed improvements on the phones. Now don't get me wrong, the processors are amazing, but Apple's devices, including the software, it's just starting to go downhill. It's starting to get more buggy, and there are just a lot of really awkward bugs that some are really obvious, some are really noticeable, and some are just so obvious that you wonder if Apple even noticed them. The fourth reason is that Apple's products, pretty much within the last year or two, pretty much all of them have been getting a bad rap. And because of this, I personally, I don't know about you, I'm sure I share this opinion with other people, but I personally feel kind of embarrassed to have Apple products. What I mean by this is, think about recent Apple products that were released within the last year or so. The Apple MacBook Pro, the iPhone 6s, the iPhone 7, AirPods, the iPad Pro, all of these were made somewhat into a joke. They were ridiculed in some way. With the MacBook Pro, the touch bar was ridiculed as a gimmick, overpriced and underpowered. The iPhone 7 was criticized for not having a headphone jack and for promoting the dongle life. The iPhone 6s was claimed that 3D touch was sort of a gimmicky feature that was never going to take off. AirPods were ridiculed as being able to be lost really easily, and just in general not very worth the price. And I could go on forever about other Apple products, but pretty much ever since 2015 or early 2016, Apple's products have been kind of unpopular. Now, I'm not talking about sales, I'm just talking about socially, when you go on to society, how people will usually view your products. Sometimes a lot of people care about what their product, what their phone, what their laptop says about them. The fifth reason why Apple sucks is that Siri is so inferior to the other AI out there. Cortana and Google Assistant, to just name a few. Samsung now also is coming out with this new AI with the Galaxy S7, Galaxy S8, which would be called Bixby, and essentially that is going to be taken off of Viv, which was an AI platform that was sort of debuted a couple years ago that really took off because of how complex the questions could get. However, with Siri, although it's very capable, there are certain things that Siri is just lacking in, such as just contextual, it's mainly contextual issues, but also has to do with the interface and just the lack of things that Siri can actually do, plus the fact that they search, plus the fact that most of the time they give you web searches, whereas Google will actually give you something more useful. The sixth reason why Apple sucks is because their designs are getting inferior, you could say. Now what do I mean by this is, actually most of the designs in the contrary are great. I mean the MacBook Pro, I have to say the design of that is pretty on point. I bet a lot of tech reviewers will agree with me on that. The MacBook 2, the MacBook Air, all of its products look pretty nice. The iMac, everything looks pretty nice. But the iPhone is the one product that, although it looks extremely nice and is definitely on the high end, for the price they're selling them at, these are not living up to what the other products are looking like. For example, take the Galaxy S7 or the S7 Edge. Either of them, you could say it's pretty much not even opinionated. The Galaxy S7 is way more beautiful than the iPhone 6s, mainly because of the curved screen, but also because of new technologies they have. Wireless charging, fast charging, OLED technology in their display, and I could go on forever on other things, but those are just to name a few. The iPhone design has been the same for 3 years. Just think about it. This phone has looked exactly the same for 3 years. Now, of course, Apple is moving to a new design this year with the iPhone 8 or the iPhone X or whatever they're going to call it, and I'm going to make a whole video on that as well. But for right now, these phones have not really changed, and that hasn't excited anybody. The seventh reason is that macOS really hasn't seen any exciting features for a really long time. Now, what I mean by this is the Mac operating system essentially hasn't gotten any features that compel people to really upgrade. Yeah, sure, there's been split screen, and then there's picture-in-picture mode, and then perhaps some other things such as the redesigned expose view or something else like that. But pretty much the biggest change that happened in macOS in the recent years has probably been OS X Yosemite, when they redesigned the entire icons and the entire look of the software. Now, I personally think that this year at WWDC, their new version of macOS should change up the icons, or at least give us a dark mode or something that just makes us more excited and more compelled to upgrade. Essentially, I can live without picture-in-picture. I can live without all these other features that they're including, like a new notification center and Siri. All those things, they don't really interest me that much. Apple, bring us something new, bring us something exciting, bring us something that will make us want to actually upgrade. The eighth reason is the same thing but with iOS. See, iOS, although it's very simplistic, has stayed pretty much the same for so many years. I mean, just think about it. iOS 7, which was the last iOS design refresh, was released in 2013. It's been almost 4 years since they debuted iOS 7. And guess what that means? Pretty much nothing has changed since then. Actually, from the very beginning, Apple never really changed anything in how their design looked and how it worked. It was pretty much exactly the same. Now, yes, Apple in iOS 10 has changed a lot of things, especially in iMessage, the look of the notifications, notification center, control center, and so many other things in 3D Touch. But just in general, it's not a huge change, and Android, in my opinion, is way ahead in terms of exciting features. The ninth reason is horrible battery life, abominable battery life. I'm talking about battery life that lasts you not even half a day. Now, I've been using an iPhone 6s since late 2015, and I have to say, the battery has not impressed me that much. Now, coming from an iPhone 5, obviously, it wasn't underwhelming. I mean, it was this was a huge upgrade from the iPhone 7, but from the iPhone 5. But compared to other flagships that cost about the same much as this, or even less, this phone is not even lasting me half a day, and sometimes even only gets through a few hours under heavy use before it just decides to turn off. And because of no wireless or fast charging, it's not like you can just charge this up for 5 minutes and get enough power for, I don't know, a couple hours of use. Now, the 10th reason, and probably the biggest reason why Apple sucks, is that they have this really weird belief that just because they put their Apple brand on it, it is automatically a good product. So what I mean by this is Apple sort of spends a lot of time on marketing so that their products are very known and very famous, but do they actually focus as much on the quality as they do on the advertising and how people view their brand? So essentially what I mean by this, if I can go into further detail here, is that Apple, most of Apple's products actually are technologically inferior to some other products. The thing is, Apple just has this weird mentality that just because it has the Apple logo on it, it just makes it immediately superior. Now, of course, being the Apple fanboy I am, I sort of agree, but I'm just saying that it's technically not true, and literally they just can't have that mentality. That mentality is going to be their downfall. It pretty much has been for every company that's been doing well. BlackBerry had that mentality, Motorola had that mentality, Nokia had that mentality, everybody had that mentality, and Apple's going downhill if they keep up that mentality. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this 12-minute roast of Apple. Doesn't mean I hate Apple, I love Apple, that's why I have an Apple only channel, but I really had to talk a little bit about what was really bothering me about Apple, and those are just 10 reasons, but I could go on forever. And I'm going to have some really exciting videos coming up, so make sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you as always in the next video.